Hello everyone, I am Nandini from Buddy Academy. In this class, I am going to discuss about the NCERT Physics first chapter, Electric Charges and Fields. As per the blueprint, the first 3 chapters covers the 16 marks in your board exams, right? So in this class, I am going to discuss about the first chapter, Electric Charges and Fields. The important topics in this chapters are electric field lines, electric charges, Coulomb's law and the superposition principle and some important problems, okay? So in this class, I am going to explain these topics and also we are going to solve some problems in the previous year problems. Okay student, let's move on to this class. First we are going to see the introduction of the electric charges and then the brief introduction about the electric charge and then conductors and insulators, which is come under a very short answer, okay, and then charge by induction, basic properties of electric charges, Coulomb's law and force between the multiple charges and electric field lines. So these are the topics that we are going to cover in this class. Okay student, let's start the class one by one. So first we are going to see the topic wise analysis of the past 10 years CBSE board exams. Okay, so in the 10 years examination, so this is the topics that you are frequently asked in the chapter. Okay, so this stands for VSA and SA, LA, VLE. So this stands for very short answer and SA stands for short answer and LA stands for long answer and VLE stands for very long answer. Okay, so let's see this, what are the answers that you are getting from which of the topics. Okay, so first was Coulomb's law. So in the Coulomb's law we are getting the very short answer and short answer. Similarly in the electric field, short answer, long answer and very long answer should be asked. Okay, will be asked. Next, electric field lines. In the electric field lines, very short answer and long answer will be asked. Okay, so these are the topics that we are going to cover in this class. In the next class, we will see these remaining topics. Okay, so first get to the Coulomb's law. So let's see what is the Coulomb's law and the importance of the Coulomb's law. Before going to the Coulomb's law, just we will see what are the introduction of the electric charges. Okay, so what is electrostatics? Electrostatics is a branch of electromagnetism that deals with the study of forces, fields and potentials arising from the static charges. Static charges is nothing but it is a non-moving charges. It is a non-moving charges. So majorly it is categorized into two branches. One is the electrostatics and another one is the electrodynamics. In the electrostatics, that deals with the static charge, that is it is not moving. Okay, it is deals with the static charges. And electrodynamics, it is a branch which covers a current electricity, okay, which you are going to learn in the third chapter. Okay, so this is also a very important chapter. Okay, let's see what is the electrostatics. So electrostatics is nothing but when you are reading about the charges which is in a non-moving condition, that is termed as the electrostatics. Okay, so the lighting is a very important and common example which is come under electrostatics. And in the next picture we have seen that the person experiencing a static shock by touching a metal knob, okay, in the winter season. So why he is experiencing such a kind of shock means because the charge is present over the surface of the metal. Okay, so this is the charges which were non-moving condition, so that it is having a static charges. Okay students, let's move on to the next topic. What is a charge? So what is a charge? Charge is nothing but it is a property of a subatomic particle that causes that experiences a force which placed in an electromagnetic field. Okay, for example, if I am keeping a particle over a electromagnetic field, so it is a property of a subatomic particle which experiences a force. So it experiences a force when kept under a electromagnetic field, so that it produces some field around it. Okay, so this is known as a charge. The charge may be either positive or negative, that will be okay. So let's see what are the types of the charge. So before going to that, First, let's see the discovered. Who discovered the charge? The charge was discovered by the Thales of Miletus, who was a Greece around 600 BC. So he discovered the charge around the 600 BC, such a earlier stage, right? So next, the symbol of charge is used as either small q or capital Q. Okay, that's not a problem. Next, what is the SI unit of charge? It is a coulomb. And the magnitude of the positive or negative charge. So what is the magnitude of the positive charge? It is E is equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. So this is the magnitude of the positive or negative charges. And also note, the charge is only having a magnitude, not a direction. Okay, let's see what are the type of charges. So there are two kinds of charges. We are already familiar about it, right? So the third was neutral charges, which is having a neutral charge. Okay, so let's see the first two kinds of charge, which is a majorly having a first one is a positive and next one is a negative. Okay, so the charges were named as a positive and negative. So who discovered this kind of charges? It is by the Benjamin Franklin. So and also he had discovered a properties. Okay, so let's see what is the properties of charges. The main property is attraction and repulsion properties. What happen when two similar charges like positive and positive charge or negative charge kept under a field is it experiences a repulsive force. It experiences a repulsive force. And what happens when the two dissimilar charges are kept under a field? Not at a field, when kept under an empty space also. So it happens a attractive force. So it experiences a attractive force. Okay, so when the two dissimilar charges are present, it experiences a attractive force, and two similar charges are present, it experiences a repulsive force. These are the properties of the charges. So next, so this is the picture for the gold leaf electroscope. So why this method is used to detect the charges? Okay, so let's see the next topic, conductors and insulators. This can be asked in a very short answer. So let's see about the conductors and insulators, and also we are going to see how the conductors and insulators behave in the electrostatics. Okay, so yes, so conductors is nothing but it can allow the electricity. So it allows the electricity. What is the mean of electricity? Yes, it is a moving charges, which is electrons. So the conductors allow the electricity to pass through them very easily. So which is a good conductor? Is copper, silver, iron. So these are the good conductors of electricity. So what about the insulators? Insulators offer a high resistance, it offers a very high resistance. So for example, if you having a wooden substance, if you give a potential difference between them, what happen? Any electricity will flow on to the wooden surface? No. Why? Because it is offering a very high amount of resistance. So there is a no current, or it is having a low current. Okay. So this is the property of an insulator, and insulator do not have any free electrons. So this is the major reason why it is offering a high resistance. Okay. The electrons are very tightly packed. Okay, so let's see the property regarding to the electrostatics. Okay, so what about the conductors in electrostatics? The conductors have a static charges evenly spread over the surface. Okay, so in the insulators, it is having a accumulated charge. That is, the charge does not spread easily. For example, consider this as a surface of the wood. So in this part, it will having a higher amount of static charges than in this part. Okay, so it is having a accumulation of charges. Okay, that is the charges does not spread evenly throughout the insulator. So this is the property of the insulators and conductors in terms of electrostatics. So let's see the property of electric charges. So there are several properties of electric charges like additivity of charges, conservation of charges and quantization of charges. Let's see the three important charges here. So in your textbook there are three important charges, properties of charges are given. First one is additivity of charges. So what is the additivity of charges? If the charge is present in a system, so if there are many n number of charges, consider plus 2 coulomb, minus 3 coulomb and plus 5 coulomb is present in the system. So what about the total charge about the system? Yes, it is a sum of the individual charge present in the system. Yes, you have to add all these charges with the symbol you have to take. Always we have already know that mass is only a positive thing and the charge, it is either positive or negative. Okay, but it is only a scalar like a mass. Okay, so here the charge is having a magnitude but no direction, but the mass also having a magnitude but no direction, but it is having a plus or minus symbol for the charge. Let's see what is the total charge present in the system. Here it was plus 2 plus 5 minus 3. So what is the answer? Plus 4. So this is the total charge present in the system. So let's see what is the conservation of charge. So conservation of charge is nothing but if the total charge is present in the system, that charge will stay constant in the system. So this is known as a conservation of charge. That is, the charges cannot be created nor be destroyed. Only the transfer of charges will occur, but no destruction or creation of the charge will occur in that system. Okay, so let us move on to the third property, which is a quantization of the charge. So what is the quantization of the charge? All the free electrons, okay, all the free charges are the integral multiple of a basic unit of charge, which is a E. So it is a integral multiple. So when we have a charge, that is calculated by the integral multiple of the basic unit of charge. What is the basic unit of charge here? E is equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. This is the magnitude of the charge, right? So here the n is nothing but a integer, which is positive or negative. So and also you have to remember that quantization is not appreciable for the macroscopic level, it is only for the microscopic level. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, Coulomb's law. So in this topic we will ask very short answer and the short answer. So what type of question you expect is derivation, that is like how the Coulomb's law this is formed, okay, how the formula is formed, or definition, or problems. You may ask derivation, that is it is a simple derivation only, and definition of a Coulomb's law, which is a law. You have to write this. Okay, and third is the problems based on the Coulomb's law. You have to use this formula for the problem. Okay, let's see one example problem which is a previously asked question. Okay, so let's see the definition of the Coulomb's law. So Coulomb's law is nothing but it states that it is directly, that is force between any two charges, say Q1 and Q2 are the two charge which is separated at a distance d. That is, force is directly proportional to the product of the magnitude of the charge and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. This is the which the law states. Okay, so let us see this. Coulomb's law is a measure the force between the 2 point charges. Yes, it is a measurement of the force between the 2 point charges. note that it is only valid for the point charges, not for the extended charges. Okay, and found that it is varied inversely as a square of the distance between the charges and was directly proportional to the, as I said before, that is it is directly proportional to the product of the magnitude of two charges that acting along the line joining the two charges. Okay, so this is the line which is joining the two charges, that the force is acting along the line. Okay, let's see the what is the formula for that. That is F is directly proportional to Q1 Q2 by R square, right? So yes, after I writing equal to, the constant of proportionality is introduced here. So which is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. When the charges are present at the medium, so in that time epsilon naught R will occur. So the epsilon naught is nothing but it is a permittivity of a free space or a vacuum which is having a constant value. Okay, so when it is given in a free space, this value can be substituted in the K value, that is K is equal to 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. Next Q1, already I have said that Q1, what is a Q1 and Q2 and R and all, right. So instead of R you can write D also, that does depend upon your convenience. Okay, so let us move on to the epsilon naught. So epsilon naught is nothing but it is a permittivity of a air or a free space which is having a value 8.85 into 10 to the power of minus 12 Coulomb square per Newton meter square. So this is the value of the epsilon naught. And then what is the value of a K, which is a 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. When the medium is given, absolutely epsilon naught R is also given in your question paper. This value, that is epsilon naught K, these value also you will expect in a question paper. Okay, these values are already given in your question paper, so no need to worry about remembering these values and all. Okay, so let's see the vector form of Coulomb's law of force. So already we have known that what is a Coulomb's law, right? So we have already know that force will having a magnitude and direction because it is a vector. So yes, so when you indicate the force, you have to consider the as well as the magnitude and have to consider the as well as the direction also. So 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught according to the Coulomb's law, and K, which is a K, and Q1 Q2 divided by R12 square. So here it was R12, which is a distance between Q1 and Q2. It is a distance between the Q1 and Q2. And what about the R12 cap? Yes, it is a unit vector. Unit vector concept is already familiar because we will read it in a mathematics, right? So unit vector is nothing but it is only to indicate a direction. So it is a unit vector. So which direction the force is moving? For F12 the force is, that is a vector is moving from 2 to 1. So this is the unit vector implies, that is R12 cap is a unit vector from 2, that is a charge, to 1. So which is having a same magnitude as F21 but it is a opposite in direction, right? Yes. Next we are going to see the one previous year question. Plot a graph showing the variation of Coulomb force versus R to 1, where R is the distance between the two charges of each pair. So they are given the two pair of charges. One I am taking as a A and another one as a B. So that A 1 microcoulomb and B 1 microcoulomb and minus 3 microcoulomb. As A there are two pair of charges and the B also two pair of charges. Note, so according to the Coulomb's force we are going to calculate the force between the two pair of charges. First we are going to calculate the FA. So what about the Fa? That is a force between the 1 and 2. Yes, it is a 1 2s are 2 r square. Consider this is a first equation. And next Fb, that is force between the 2 and 3, which is a minus 6 r square. So consider this is a equation 2. By considering these two equations, you have to plot the graph where f is taken as a y-axis and 1 by r square is taken as a x-axis. Note that the magnitude of charge will increase, absolutely the slope of a graph also increases. Here the graph is a straight line. Let's draw the graph. So obviously FB is having a larger magnitude than the FA, right? Yes, because it is having a 6 by r square and here it was only 2 by r square. So absolutely the B is having a large slope than the A. So this is the graph we will get by doing this procedures. Okay, so in this fashion we have derived the force between the two pair of charges and also we have plot the graph. Okay, so let's move to the next topic. Important points of electrostatic force. Let's see what are the important points of electrostatic force. First one is F always depend upon medium. Is when the charges are kept under any medium, say water or glass, whatever may be. Okay, so when the charges are kept under any medium, so that medium will changes a force of attraction or repulsion. So the force may be vary. For example, if we are placing a same kind of charges, say A and B, so it shows a variable. For example, say Fx is a force which is kept under a air. That force will vary when kept under a water. So it experiences a Fy force between the two charges. So that F always depends upon the medium, and then F acts along the line joining center. As said before, is the force is always act along the line joining the center. So for example, if it is having a attraction charge like this, so this implies that the force is acting along the line joining center. So it is acting along this line, and then F is repulsive as well as it is attractive ones. Okay, yes, if the two similar charges is present, F is repulsive. If the two dissimilar charges is present, F is attractive, and the F is obeys Newton's third law, which is F21 is equal to minus of F12 is equal to minus of F21, which implies it is obeying Newton's third law. Why it is obeying Newton's third law means that is a force experienced by the charge 1 due to the charge 2. It is having an equal magnitude but in the opposite direction with the force experienced by the charge 2 due to 1. So let's see the limitations of Coulomb's law. So though it is having several limitations, let me point out three, majorly three limitations. First one is it is valid only for the point charges, not for the extended charges. First thing. So next thing was when the both charges are at rest. If the charges are at rest, the Coulomb's law is valid. If the charges are at not rest, then the Coulomb's law is not valid. If one charge at rest and another charge is moving, the Coulomb's law is valid. So these are the three limitations. Next we are going to discuss about the force between the multiple charges, which is also known as the principle of superposition. In your exam, if the if they are asked principle, explain the principle of the superposition, don't confuse. So it is a same, which is a forces between the multiple charges. Okay, let's see the what is the principle of superposition. So some principle of superposition is nothing but when a force on a charge is to be calculated, it is to be calculated by adding all the charges. For example, if the system, I will say an example so that you can be more clear about the principle of superposition. For example, if a charge q1 is present in the system, so what is the force experienced by the q1? Yes, it is depend upon the q2, because there are two charges are present in the system, say q1 and q2. What is the force of the experienced by the q1? Yes, it is a force due to the q2, that is F1 2. Force experienced by the charge 1 is due to the charge 2 is said to be Coulomb's law, right? So what happen when there are many charges are present in the system, say q1, q2, q3, q4, q5 and q6, n number of charges are present in the system means, so on that time you can't go for the Coulomb's law. So in that time the principle of superposition is introduced. It is also similar to the Coulomb's law, that it is adding up all the charges, that is all the forces experienced by the charge individually, that the force on any charge due to the number of other charges is that vector sum of all the forces on that charge due to other charges, but you have to take only one at a time. So it is a very important thing. Don't confuse with F12 with F13. Don't mess up, because you have to add up the individually force experienced by the 1 due to 2 due to 3. So let's see the derivation. So first F1, I want to calculate the charge force experienced by the charge q1. So there are n number of charges are present in the system, say q1, q2, q3, q4, q5. So there are 5 charges are present in the system. So what about the charge force experienced by the q1 is equal to F12, which is the force experienced by the charge due to q2, and then force experienced by the charge 1 due to q3, and etc. force experienced by the charge q1 due to n charges. That is having a derivation which is a 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, which is a common value of which is termed as a k, and then q1 q2 divided by r12 square. R12 is nothing but it is a distance between the charge q1 and q2, and r12 cap, it is a unit vector, right, which is having a direction from to 1, and here from 3 to 1. So by adding individually you can calculate the force experienced, total force experienced by the charge q1. Similarly you can calculate the force experienced by the charge q2 and q3 and q4 similarly. So by summing all this you will get this total force. So what is the common value? So this is the common expression for the force due to n number of charges, which is a q1 divided by, here the q1 is common, right, I am taking a q1 outside, so that q1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught, summation of I is equal to 2. You have to calculate the from the second charge, not a first charge. Okay, so here it was I is equal to 2 to n number of charges qi. In the I you can substitute I is equal to 2, 3, 4, so on, and with the r cap 1i, and you have to divide it with the square of the distance between the charges. And also note that all the electrostatic principle is basically a consequence of the Coulomb's law and the superposition law. So this Coulomb's law and superposition law form a basis for all the laws which is regarding to the electrostatics. Okay students, let's move on to the next important topic, electric field. So already we are familiar about the forces between the charges, right? So it is enough to calculate the force, but if you want to calculate how the force is, if you want to calculate the electric field, I will tell you a simple thing. Take a charge plus q, so that a charge will having a force which is experienced by the another charge, say qb, and here it was qa. You will say the force between the two charges, right? You can't say that qa is having a force, produces a force this much of, that is a 5 Newton force that this qa is producing. You can't say that this much of force is produced by this, so that the electric field is introduced. So this electric field is defined as the electric force per unit charge when placed at that point. So how much of electric field is calculated by the electric force per unit charge when placed at that point is termed as E vector is equal to, which is having a limit q naught tends to 0, which is a per unit charge, and E vector divided by q naught. In examination you have to write this formula, which is a very important formula. So in the previous question paper also they have asked, define the intensity of the electric field at a point. It is a similar question which asks about the electric field, define electric field, and also write the formula derivation for the electric field. You have to write this formula, which is a E vector is equal to limit, which is q naught tends to be 0, and then E vector divided by q naught. So this is the expression for the electric field intensity. Okay, let's see the what is the SI unit for the electric field, which is a Newton per Coulomb. It is a SI unit for the electric field, and this concept was initially discovered by Michael Faraday. An electric field is a vector field, that is, it denotes both the magnitude as well as the direction. Okay, let's see the derivation for the electric field. For example, take a charge q plus q, which is having a distance r from the test charge q. I am taking a test charge here, and this is a source charge. The test charge is only used to find the electric field produced by the source charge. Okay, so here what is the electric field produced by the charge at a point r? I am taking a distance r here. So I am usually consider the test charge as a positive. Okay. Yes. So what is the electric field here? That is, electric field is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Already we have know that E is equal to F by Q, right? Q naught. Yes. So that if already is a 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q r square. By taking the Q in the LHS, you will get E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q divided by r square and r cap. R cap is a unit vector which denotes the direction of the field. So next, already we have discussed about it, right? Okay, let's move on to the next. Okay, let's discuss about the important key points on electric fields. For different position, for example, say the charge plus q is present here, which is having a electric field at this point, say EQ1, and here EQ2, which is having a distance r from the test source charge, and here it is having a distance r2 from the source charge, right? So here it is having an electric field which is a EQ1, which is having a high value than this value. So that at different position, the charge q over all the space, we will get the different values of electric field. We will get a different values of electric field at each and every point, but it is same radially. For example, if I am drawing a circle, means Consider this is a circle. So here it is having a same radius, right? Throughout this circle, I will having a same electric field. But when I draw another circle, so here the electric field is differ from this point. So this is the point we have to remember. That is, for different position of charge, you will having a different values of electric field, and the field exists one at every point in a three-dimensional space. It exists at every point on the three-dimensional space. And for the positive charge, it is radially outwards, and for the negative charge, it is radially inwards. This point is very important point. It may asked in a very short answer. Okay. Okay students, let's move on to the next topic, which is the electric field due to the system of charges. It is a topic which is asked in a previous year questions. So very important. So listen carefully. So first we have to consider a system of charges Q1, Q2, Q until Qn. So let us see this diagram. Here the charges Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4 are present. So there are 4 charges are present in the system, right? So consider the system of charges Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4, which is having a position vectors R1, R2 until R1 cap. Okay, so it is having a unit vector which is a R1P. So here the R1P implies the unit vector from 1 to P. That is, the vector is radiated from 1 to P. So similarly, what is the R2P cap? It is a unit vector from 2 to P. Say the electric field E1 at R due to the Q1 at R1 is given by, for example, I am taking a E1 here and the Q1. Where is the Q1? Yes, here that is a Q1. I am taking a source charge which is a positive, right? So what is a resultant here? Yes, it is having a repulsive force. So that the electric field is like this, in this direction. So when we have a Q2 here and E2 here, so what is the resultant electric field? Yes, it is radiated in this direction because it is a repulsive force, right? Yes, what is the electric field? E2 at R due to the Q2 at R2, it is a repulsive force which is a E2. We already know this formula. I will write here E1 E 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q, which is a source charge. Okay, Q divided by R. So it is a distance between the source charge and the point charge. So I am considering this is a R, and R cap. R cap is nothing but a unit vector. So in this formula we are going to substitute these datas here. So here E1 is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q. Instead of this capital Q, I am writing a small q1 divided by R1P. R1P is the distance between the charge Q1 and the point P. The point P is located here. What is the electric field E2 at R due to the Q2 at R2? It is similar. By substituting the data in this formula, we will get this expression. By adding all the electric field, we will get the total electric field experienced at a point P. By adding all the electric field values, we will get the common expression, which is a 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught is taken as a common term, and Qi divided by R1 IP square into R cap IP. R cap IP is a unit vector which is from I to P. The next topic was electric field lines. In this topic, you may ask Very short answer and long answer. So let's see what is the electric field lines. So see this figure, in this figure what you are seeing is the lines are radiated outwards from the positive charge, right? Yes, the electric field is present here. So that the electric field is represented by the electric field lines, which is the arrow indicates the electric field, which is representing the electric field is presenting this point. So if you are representing this arrow like it is a, I am drawing here. So this is the minus charge, minus Q. See, it is a minus Q. So how about the electric field lines? Yes, it is radiated towards the charge, right? So this indicates the electric field lines. So connect the arrows pointing in one direction and the resulting figure represents the field lines. So the magnitude of the field is represented by the density of the field lines, not by the number of lines is present. This is a very important point that should be noted. If you are having a many number of lines, say like this, if you are having a many number of lines, it is not said to be it is having a strong electric field. Okay, it is depend upon the density of the field lines. For example, if you are having a more distance between these lines, it is having a low amount of electric field. If it is having a very shorter distance between the field lines, it is having a more electric field. So this is the concept that you have to remember. Okay, yes. Next, E is stronger near the charge, that you are already familiar about it, and so the density of the field lines are more near the charge. Yes, we are seeing that this distance are very closer than this distance, right? So that the E is representing the electric field intensity or electric field, which is a strong near the charge, which is having a high value near the charge, but it here as far we are going, it is decreasing, right? Yes. Next we are going to see the electric field lines in depth. Density of the field lines, one has to consider the number of lines per unit cross sectional area perpendicular to the lines. Let me consider this example. I am taking a small area in this part and also I am taking a same area in this part also. So which area it is having a more amount of electric field? Let's calculate. In this area, only one or two field lines are passing over this area, right? So that it represents it is a weaker field region. And here you are seeing that more amount of lines, that is a 3 to 4 lines are crossing through the given area. So that it implies that it having a region of stronger field. So it is experimentally proved that it is having a stronger field when it is having a many field lines through the given area. So that the electric field lines are represented by this way. So the field lines are discovered by the Faraday, and the field lines where it is crowded, it is said to be a field is stronger, and when it is having a more spaced. For example, if it is having a very large number of space, means it is said to be a weaker field. Next, properties of electric field lines. It is also very important question. This question can be asked in a short answer. First property was electric fields start from the positive charges and end at a negative charges. Yes, the electric field is start from the positive charge and negative charge. If you want to represent the field line for the positive charge, you have to indicate the arrow radially outwards, and if you want to indicate the field lines for the negative charge, you have to indicate the arrow like inwards. And in the charge free region, the electric field lines are taken to be continuous curve without any breaks. And for the two field lines, and also importantly note that the two field lines can never intersect each other, because the field lines are used to represent the direction of the electric field. Yes, it is not possible, and the electrostatic field lines do not form any closed loops, and yes, it is not form any closed loops, and the lines which are parallel and uniform spaced, then the field is uniform. When the lines are parallel and uniformly spaced, so that is said to be a uniform field. Okay students, let's solve the previous year question. In which orientation a dipole is placed in a uniform electric field is in stable and unstable equilibrium. So dipole is nothing but it is a equal and opposite charges are kept at a distance r, that we are going to see in the further classes. So it is constituted a dipole. So what is in which orientation a dipole placed in a uniform electric field is in stable and unstable equilibrium? It is asked in 2010 question paper. Okay, let's solve this. So for stable equilibrium, you have to place the dipole parallel to the electric field. You have to place a dipole parallel to the electric field, and you have, if you want to experience the unstable equilibrium, you have to place a dipole in a perpendicular to the electric field. EF is representing the electric field. Yes, let's solve the next question. Why should electrostatic field be 0 inside the conductor? Because electrostatic is only present at the surface. Electric field inside the conductor is to be 0 in the absence of the charge. Okay, because here the charges are absence. So that the charges remain only on the surface, not at inside the conductor. So this is the reason. And then why must electrostatic field be normal to the surface at every point of the charged conductor? Because tangent on the charged conductor gives the direction of the electric field at that point. So this is the reason why the electrostatic field be normal to the surface at every point on the charge chart, because the tangent on the charged conductor gives the direction of the electric field. Next question was, what is the direction of the electric field at the surface of the charged conductor having a charge density sigma is less than 0? So what is the direction? Yes, the direction was, the direction of electric field is normal and inward to the surface. So this is the answer. Why the direction of the electric field at the surface having a charge density sigma, which is a charge density, surface charge density, which is less than 0, because the direction of the electric field is normal and inward to the surface. And next question was, why do the electric field lines do not form a closed loops? Why it is not form a closed loop? Because the electric field lines are radiated from the positive charge and end at the negative charge, right? So it cannot form in a closed loops. Okay student, let's move on to the next question. Why do the electric field lines never cross each other? Why? Because, for example, if the two electric field lines are crossing means, so that it indicates the two different directions, right? For example, this. So if it is crossing or intersecting each other, it indicates the two direction. which is not possible, right? Because the electric field lines are used to represent the direction of the electric field. Direction of the electric field. So that the two electric field lines never cross each other, because it will having two different direction is not possible at all. So the electric field lines having a single direction which is never intersect each other. So but two lines will get close to each other, but it is not possible to having a intersection over each other. Okay, so let's take a next question. 2-point charges plus 3q and minus 4q are placed at the vertices of B and C. So there are two charges which is placed on the vertices B and C, which was plus 3q and minus 4q, right? And of an equilateral triangle. So this triangle is a equilateral triangle ABC of side A as given in the figure. Obtain the expression for the magnitude and the direction of the resultant electric field at the vertex A. So this is the vertex A due to these charges. Consider this is a charge plus 3q and minus 3q, and here the charge. So the resultant electric field, what about the resultant electric field at the vertices A? They are asking, right? Yes. So that first we have to determine the direction here, so that it is a plus 3q. So it experiences a repulsive force which is a EAB, and it is experiences a attractive force because there is a two opposite charges, right? So the attractive force is experienced by the vertices at a point A, so that the resultant electric field is E net. But you don't know about the angle alpha, right? So you have to find out the magnitude of the net electric field, and you have to find the direction, which is a alpha, which is having a theta from the E net to the AC, line AC. So okay student, let's solve this problem. It is a previous year question. First you have to determine the EAB. So what is the electric field formula? E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, which is a K, and Q by R square. R is the distance between the two charge, which is a source charge and test charge, right? Yes. So first we have to determine the value of the EAB, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, which is the value of a K, and here it is a value of a Q. What is the Q value here? Plus 3Q divided by R square. So R, instead of R I am having A square. EAB, modulus of EAB is equal to, I am considering this value 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught A square Q. Okay, so I am considering this value as a E. E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q by A square. Let's have this value. So that 3Q. So this is the value of the modulus EAB. Let's keep it separate. And what is the value of EAC? Because I am having a electric field over the C due to A due to the C, right? So that EAC is equal to, similarly 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, here minus 4Q by A square. So I am taking a modulus here, so that modulus here, because I am having a modulus here also in the LHS also, so that it is a bracket and here it is a modulus. E vector AC, modulus of E vector AC is equal to same. If you have to substitute the E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q by A in this formula. So what is the resultant here? Q4E. So this is the resultant of the E vector AC, EAC vector. I am boxing it. Okay students, let's have the E net. Net electrical field is calculated by taking a square root of 3E, which is a EAB, 3E square plus 4E square plus 2 into 3E into 4E cos theta. So here I am having a cos theta. So theta is equal to 120 degree. Because it is a equilateral triangle, for every equilateral triangle it is having a 60 degree, right? So that cos theta is equal to 120 degree, which is equal to minus 1 by 2. Cos 120 degree by resolving this we will get the answer 9E square plus 16E square plus 3 2s are 6, 6 4s are 24E into 1 minus 1 by 2. By taking root we will get root of 13E square, which is E root of 13. The value of E net was root 13. What is the value of E which you have 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q by A. So I am just substituting the value of E here, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q by A square. So this is the value of the net electrical field. Then we are going to find the alpha. Tan alpha is equal to EAB sin 120 degree divided by EAC. So this is the formula that we are going to use here. AB cos 120 degree. So by substituting the values of all these parameters, we will get 2E into root 3 by 2. So which is the value of the sin 120 degree, and 2 is the value of the EAB divided by, so what is the value of EAC? It is a 4E plus 3E into minus 1 by 2. So by resolving this we will get alpha is equal to tan inverse of 3 root 3 divided by 5. So this is the answer we are getting. The session is over. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and also learned the topics what we have discussed today. Okay students, let's see the short recap over the session. First we have learned what is the electric charges and the properties of the electric charge, and also we have learned the Coulomb's law, superposition principle and the electric field lines, and also we have derived the derivations regarding to these topics, and also we have solved some previous year problems. In the next class we are going to continue this chapter and we are going to see electric flask, electric dipole and the continuous charge distribution, and the very important topic Gauss law and its application. Okay student, let's see in the next class. Thank you.
For more queries, please contact Buddy on 98408 44987 or visit buddy.life.